They say, I'm getting old. I don't remember the way I used to. Well, how old are you? I'm 36. No, that's not supposed to happen. Your brain's on fire and you're losing access to your memory. You're not remembering the way you used to.
Welcome to the Brain Fit Podcast, where we share the cutting-edge science on how you can improve your memory and live a happier, healthier life. My name is Robert Love. I'm a neuroscientist and I have a medical clinic in Florida where we are reversing Alzheimer's in our patients. Today, I am speaking with Dr. Tom O'Brien. He is one of the most famous, well-known experts on autoimmune disease and food. And so we're going to go deep into gluten, how gluten harms your body, increases inflammation, how that harms your brain, why this is so important to take care of, how food can affect autoimmune disease, and what you can do to lower inflammation, and how that can help with autoimmune disease just by adjusting your diet. So here is Dr. Tom O'Brien. Okay, so I'm extremely excited for our next interview. This is Dr. Tom O'Brien. He's an international best-selling author, and I don't want to call him a celebrity doctor, but this man gets stopped in the airport for the impact he's made in the world. I first learned about him with his book, The Autoimmune Fix, which helped me understand gluten and autoimmune disease, and I've been gluten-free since reading the book. He also wrote the book, You Can Fix Your Brain, which is a tremendous book about healing your brain from things like neurodegenerative disease. And I'm just going to read just a little bit of his bio. He's the founder of the Doctor.com, which is an informational website on health and wellness, and specifically gluten-free. And he's an internationally recognized speaker focused on food sensitivities, environmental toxins, development of autoimmune disease. He's a best-selling author of multiple books, and he's here with us today. Dr. Tom, thank you so much for being here. It's truly an honor to have you.
Well, thank you, Robert. What you're doing is so critically important, carrying this information out to large groups of people. So thank you for what you're doing.
Well, thank you. So Dr. Tom, tell me, I'm going to ask you a semi-controversial question here. Controversial if you're in mainstream medicine, and you are a physician, so you have this experience. What's the truth about Alzheimer's disease? Is this preventable? Are there things people can do to actually prevent the disease? And for someone who has it, can the cognitive decline associated with Alzheimer's disease, can that be reversed?
To your first question, the answer is absolutely yes. It can be arrested or prevented. It's much better to prevent than to recognize you're somewhere down the path already and you want to stop the progression. It's much better to prevent. So those that feel they're at risk, family history, the rule is test, don't guess. You test to see, is my brain on fire right now and I feel fine? Because we'll talk about that here and what I call the spectrum in the development of Alzheimer's and how long it takes before you recognize, or I should say realize, that you've got this problem. So it's always better to prevent. So your first question, the answer is yes. And for your second question, those who have been diagnosed, can it be turned around? The answer is yes. In the milder cases, mild Alzheimer's, yes, it can. Moderate Alzheimer's is much, much more difficult. And severe Alzheimer's, no. As far as I know, no, it can't.
So the earlier you start, the better, both in the prevention process and in the development of the disease. If you can catch at the mild stage, you can reverse some of the cognitive decline, even at the moderate stage. But at the severe stage, we haven't seen a lot of progress yet in the literature, in the case studies.
That's my experience in reading the literature. Now, I'm not running a clinic seeing exclusively Alzheimer's patients every day. So those that you interview who are doing that may have some evidence and knowledge about reversing severe Alzheimer's, which would be great. I'm just not aware of that.
But this is very hopeful. So there are things people can do to prevent this, to reduce the risk.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And that's what I hope people get out of today in this interview is the mechanism, understanding the mechanism of that.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So what's the number one thing someone needs to know about these neurodegenerative diseases, these brain-related diseases, and how they can prevent them?
Critically important question. Thank you so much. The Center for Disease Control tells us that 14 of the top 15 causes of death in the world today are chronic inflammatory diseases. The only one that's not is unintentional injuries, accidents.
Wow.
Everything else is a chronic inflammatory disease. Everything. Diabetes, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, autoimmune diseases, rheumatoid MS, they're all chronic inflammatory diseases. Now, what that means, and I'll show you with Alzheimer's in a minute, but what that means, if it's chronic, it's been going on for a long time. This inflammation that's circulating for years, and you feel fine. You feel just fine. And that's the big danger that people just aren't aware of. And they don't know. They think they're living an okay life. They're healthy. They're young. They're in their 30s. But, by the time they get to be 36, 38, and I'm making up the number, it could be earlier, it could be later, but they say, with their friends, I'm getting old. I don't remember the way I used to. Well, how old are you? I'm 36. No, that's not supposed to happen. Your brain's on fire and you're losing access to your memory. You're not remembering the way you used to. And we giggle about it because it's so terrifying to think about. We just think, I'm partying too much, or I have too much stress. And that's the good escape word so that we don't have to think about this. I'm too much stress in my life. And, so that's why I'm not remembering where I parked my car in the parking lot, or where are my keys, or that person walking, what's her name? What's their name? Walking towards me. What's her name? That's not supposed to happen. That as we age, some of our cognitive function slows down a little bit in milliseconds. But one of my mentors, Professor Michael Marsh from Oxford, he's passed now, but he was the godfather of celiac disease. And he retired at 74 from his active professorship. Then he went back to Oxford and he got 2 PhDs at Oxford. If that's not a model we all would like to follow, what's not? So the recognition that chronic inflammation is called chronic low-grade inflammation is going on for years. For years. That's the work of David Furman and his group at the Buck Institute for Aging. And he's got the grants from NASA to be looking at why the astronauts age so much in space. These guys are dialing it down, the aging process. And he published a paper about 1.5 years ago. It's a brilliant paper on this low-grade chronic inflammation that goes for a long time, for a long, long time.
Yeah, and I think people just don't understand how big and important this is. The Framingham study from Framingham, Massachusetts, this blew my mind. This was a couple of years ago where I read this research, is that they look at people long-term and they measured markers of inflammation. People's markers at age 40, so inflammation at age 40 predicted the risk of Alzheimer's at age 70.
Exactly.
I said, oh my gosh. I said, I'm 35. I gotta stop this. I'm 40 now. My inflammation today predicts my risk factors for Alzheimer's disease 30 years later.
Exactly.
If you suffer from brain fog, or if you'd like to increase your mental clarity, I have a great supplement called NeuroPlus Brain and Focus Formula that can be really helpful to you. This is a combination of 7 powerful ingredients that are shown to improve memory, improve focus, improve attention, reduce brain fog, and increase mental clarity. I really like to take this in the afternoon if I'm feeling afternoon brain fog, or if I'm feeling tired. This helps give my brain more energy so I can continue to work during the day. This works really well in the morning with morning coffee and lion's mane. This also works in the afternoon alone or with lion's mane. Do not take this at night. It is very stimulating. It's very powerful. This can help reduce or even end brain fog in as little as 3 days. The average is about 2 weeks, and it comes with a 6-month unconditional money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free. So if you want to try this risk-free, go to robertlove.net and then click the link that says NeuroPlus Brain and Focus Formula.
If I can share my screen.
Yeah, let's do that. So you're in for a real treat. Dr. Tom just showed me these slides right before. This is mind-expanding stuff. I'm so glad we get to see this from you. So
thank you. And so this is a slide that in Dr. Furman's article from the Buck Institute on Aging. And I just love this slide because it says it all. It's systemic chronic inflammation that is the mechanism that goes on for decades, killing off cells, killing off cells, killing off cells. And where is the inflammation coming from? If you look at the left side of the screen, it's the too much bacteria, too much virus, too many bugs that we're exposed to, or it's physical inactivity, or it's the obesity, or it's having too many bad guys in the gut, not enough good guys, or it's the food you're eating. We called them sliders when I was growing up. The hamburgers from the fast
Oh,
food
yes, the
places.
sliders from it's not
White Castle.
White Castle, yes.
That's right.
Have you seen the Harold and Kumar go to White Castle?
No.
It's a whole hero's journey about trying to go to White Castle when they're high on marijuana cannabis. Very
Oh
fun.
my.
Not
Oh my.
relevant to our conversation here, but very
So-
fun movie.
All of these things on the left turns that wheel, that cog, that then turns the wheel in the center, producing the chronic inflammation. And when that wheel is turning in the center, that goes on for years and years and years, it turns the wheel on the left that manifests as diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, cardiovascular disease, cancer, depression, autoimmune diseases, neurodegenerative. Just depends on your genetics and antecedents. Now, antecedents is a geek word that means how you live your life. And if you're eating tuna fish 2 or 3 times a week, you got mercury toxicity most likely, because almost all the tuna's high in mercury. That's an antecedent. So it's your genetics and your antecedents that decides where on that wheel on the right you're going to show your symptoms. So that's the first slide that I wanted to show you.
Let's stay here for just a moment. This is really great, and this is just such great information. It makes it so clear. Problems like physical inactivity, being obese, poor gut health, poor diet, stress, bad sleep, that creates the chronic inflammation that supports chronic inflammation.
Right.
That inflammation can manifest over time as these different diseases, as heart disease, as diabetes, as depression, as anxiety, Alzheimer's disease, all kinds of things, autoimmune disease. And so it's really important to understand this link, because it's hard to say. It's the connection between diet and then autoimmune disease is less straightforward. And all these things put together on the left on the first part is really helpful to understand. All those create inflammation. Inflammation creates all these other different problems that manifest in different ways in different people.
Yeah, just one clarification. Any of these things on the left side, it doesn't have to be all of them, because somebody's going to say, well, I exercise every day, so I don't have physical inactivity, so I'm fine. No, you're not. So any of these on the left is all you need, just one of them that takes you over the line of tolerance, wherever that is for you, and creates the inflammation. Your by the way, inflammation is not bad for you. It saves your life every day. Excessive inflammation is bad for you. So the rule is test, don't guess. First, you test. Do I have excess inflammation right now? And when you see that you do an OMG, oh my God, I do have this inflammation in my brain. Then the question is, where is the inflammation coming from? And that's the world of functional medicine.
What tests for inflammation do you like? I tell people C-reactive protein, IL-6, and do you like TNF-alpha?
The most comprehensive one that I have seen is called the NeuroZoomer Plus. NeuroZoomer Plus. It looks at 53 markers of inflammation in your brain.
Wow.
And so when I've never had one come back negative on a first test. They better come back negative after they've been working on it for a year or two. They better, but the first one, no, because everybody's inflamed. How can you believe that, these chemtrails, all this stuff in the air, you're breathing it. When you breathe it, it goes right up to the memory center of your brain, creates inflammation in your brain. How can you think it's not a problem?
Absolutely.
Because we don't know. So if we don't know, if we don't have direct evidence, we kind of let it go. Say, oh man, well, I don't know.
Not to mention the toxicity in the water, the glyphosate in our food, the glyphosate in our rainwater that gets into the ground.
Listen, the smell test is such a great test to do to identify. Just Google smell and cognitive decline, and all the studies will just pop up. And it's so easy to do a smell test. And so if you notice that you're losing your sense of smell, you can go to my website, thedr.com/smell. And there's 2 videos I've done and 5 studies. And I explain the studies in the video of what that means for your brain. And so you do the smell test, which is like $49 for the test. It's so simple and it's so accurate. It's 97% accurate. So you check yourself for smell, or if you think you're losing your sense of smell, then you order the test, the dr.com/smell, and then you get the results right away in your hand when you do the test. That's instantaneous results. And then you find out, wow. Now, why does smell have anything to do with your brain? Well, ask any neurologist and they'll say, I never thought about that, but yeah, I remember that from school. And that is the only nerves in the body that go directly into the brain with no screen, no junctions, no way to restrict entry into the brain. The only nerves are the nerves of smell. They're the only ones. Why? They're called the olfactory nerves. Why? Because it was a life-saving mechanism for our ancestors. When they're walking down the trail, they better be able to smell saber-toothed tiger really quick. Ooh. And turn around and go the other way. Or our ancient ancestors before 10,000 years ago were nomads. They followed the herds. And so they're always looking for food. Their number one concern was food. Number 2 was shelter. Number 3, what was the third one? I'm not remembering the third one, but number 4 was reproduction. But it was always safety, smell for our food, safety. The third one will come to me, and then reproduction. So they're walking
water.
They're walking down the road. They find something, they pick it up, or they're walking down the trail. There were no roads. They pick it up. The first thing they do is smell it. Then they'll nibble it. Then they'll eat it, right? But smell was the first thing they always did. So they had to have a really refined sense of smell to identify danger. And if they didn't, many of them died and they did not reproduce.
I would like to thank our sponsor, Microingredients. Microingredients has really high quality products. All of their products are third-party tested, which means an independent company has tested them for quality and safety. So you know you were getting the highest quality products. They have a great collagen. This great anti-aging benefit helps reduce skin wrinkles, great for your skin, hair, and nails. MCT oil is terrific in coffee, great dairy replacement. And this is also great for the brain. Can even help with weight loss. Their blueberry powder, their organic blueberry powder. I'd love to add this to my smoothies. And their newest supplement, their curcumin supplement, is fantastic. So a good curcumin supplement will have 1,000 milligrams a day of curcumin, and it will have black pepper. So this has black pepper, and this has 1,000 milligrams of curcumin, plus some other things in it, and MCT oil as well, which helps with absorption. Research shows I've been taking curcumin for at least 5 years. I'm going to take curcumin as long as I'm alive until the science changes, because this is so good for your brain. Curcumin helps reduce the accumulation of amyloid plaque in the brain. Curcumin improves memory in double-blind, placebo-controlled studies. Curcumin reduces inflammation. It slows down aging. Is one of the safest, most powerful supplements you can take. And so if you want to get this from Microingredients, go to Amazon and then use the coupon code RobertLove at checkout, and that will get you a really nice discount on curcumin.
Does the nose provide a direct access to the brain without screening? So I'm
direct,
like,
yeah.
People who snort cocaine, is that crossing the blood? Is that crossing the blood-brain barrier because there's nothing between the nose and the brain?
It's going right back into the memory center of the brain and then further.
So also some of the cutting edge technology with stem cells is actually taking stem cells intranasally, so they do get across the blood-brain barrier because some of the IV stem cells aren't crossing the blood-brain barrier.
Now, the interesting thing about stem cells is that if you talk to orthopedic surgeons working with quadriplegics, and they've done stem cell injections into the spine to try to get more nerves to grow, to get some function back to their arms or legs. Jaw-dropping results when they use stem cells from the nasal epithelium. They found that those are the fastest growing stem cells in the body, is the inside of the nose. Because that sense, the sense of smell, was one of our most primary defense mechanisms. So humans, stem cell reproduction, the fastest ones are the nasal epithelium.
So John, with them scraping stem cells from my nose, if they're going to use my stem cells, or
well, I don't know. That's not my world. I just read the science about this, and
it's really interesting.
Yeah, it really is. And you talk to the orthopods that are doing, and they're publishing papers. We're getting great results. People are getting some feeling again, much quicker. Before with stem cells, it was kind of a shotgun. You hope it works. But now with the nasal, stem cells are getting much better results. So that just gives us a sense of the priority system in the body. That what does nature or the creator, however you think about it, where do they put the priorities? The first priority is the nasal epithelium for safety. And those cells had to regrow. That's why the stem cell reproduction there is fast and comprehensive. So in any event,
So we got the sense. So this slide's great. So the chronic inflammation, all the different causes of chronic inflammation, how chronic inflammation can manifest as different diseases in the body, from depression and autoimmune disease to neurodegenerative diseases, and metabolic disease, cardiovascular disease. This is really, really helpful.
14 of the 15 top causes of death are chronic inflammatory diseases. This is the mechanism by which that inflammation occurs. And people I don't know why every doctor in the world doesn't talk about this, because this is the primary 101 mechanism for any disease. You've got to reduce the amount of inflammation you have. And you're not going to do it unless you recognize that you're inflamed. And then you test to see why is my immune system activated? Mrs. Patient, your immune system is the armed forces in your body. It's there to protect you. There's an Army, an Air Force, a Marines, a Coast Guard, a Navy. We call them IgA, IgG, IgE, IgM, cytokines. They're all there to protect you. So the million-dollar question is, what are they trying to protect you from? You're not going to reduce your inflammation unless you stop the exposure that's activating your immune system to protect you. So if you've got a moldy shower curtain and you think, well, it's not too bad, but you do the test and you find out you've got mold infection in your body, that's a trigger. That's gasoline on the fire.
Absolutely.
You've got to get the mold out. Whether it's a shower curtain or in the walls of your house, you have to get the mold out. If it's a food, you'd have to, the rule is test, don't guess. Where's the inflammation coming from? So you have to do the right test. But then when you identify, wow, I didn't know that I have a problem with dairy or with gluten. I didn't know that. I feel fine when I did. But you can't argue with your immune system. You can't say to your immune, hey, I like a grilled cheese sandwich. What are you talking about? I like a grilled cheese. I don't feel bad when I eat a grilled cheese sandwich. It doesn't matter how you feel. Your immune system is trying to protect your life. Anytime you've got excess inflammation going on, anytime it's causing this low-grade chronic systemic inflammation, that's the wheel in the center, that's going to manifest primarily wherever your genetic and antecedent weak link is on the right side.
Fascinating. Thank you so much for showing us this slide. This is terrific.
Yeah, you bet. And you're the kind of geek like I am, Robert, where you get this right away. You say, wow, this is 101. Everybody needs to know this. Okay, so I will send you that paper so you can take the slide and post it there if you want to.
I mean, I'm going to print that up because I want to see that. I want to show that. I'm going to show that in my social media videos. It's really helpful to have that understanding of one wheel turns another, and inflammation's the center, and it really circles around that, the different causes and the different impacts of inflammation. It's terrific.
Right, because people get overwhelmed, because you'll have a number of world-class guests in this summit who are going to talk about their area of expertise. You say, wow, maybe that's it for me. And then the next guy is talking about his, wow, maybe that's it for me. Whoa. And for some people, that's exactly the primary trigger causing inflammation. For somebody else, it's going to be a different trigger. But the big kahuna understanding is it's chronic inflammation. That's the big deal.
So let me ask you a little bit of a controversial question. Controversial because people still push back on me on this, and that's great. Science is about disagreement. One of the reasons I'm very disappointed with our scientific conversation during the pandemic was there was no conversation. And I'm not saying anybody's right here. I'm saying the fact that we couldn't talk about it without the fear of being silenced is incorrect. That's not good science. That's not freedom. And so I love that we can talk about these things and share the science and disagree with each other if that's the thing. So gluten is still a controversial thing, despite your work, despite the biochemistry of digestion. And despite the mounting evidence, gluten is still controversial. People will say, well, I'm not gluten sensitive, or I don't know a difference, or I've been eating bread from the farm for 50 years. My grandmother ate bread until she was 95, no problems at all.
If you or someone you love has Alzheimer's or another form of dementia, I want you to know there is hope. Alzheimer's is preventable and it is even reversible. In fact, we are reversing Alzheimer's in my medical clinic here in Florida. My partner and medical director is Dr. Josh Hellman, a medical doctor trained at Harvard who specializes in preventing and reversing Alzheimer's disease, and we are reversing Alzheimer's in our patients. If you'd like to learn more about working with us to both prevent Alzheimer's and even reverse Alzheimer's and reverse memory loss associated with other forms of dementia, we would love to hear from you and send you some free information so you can learn what we are doing and see if it's a fit for you to come down and work with us in our clinic. We also work with other clinics around the country to help patients both prevent Alzheimer's as well as to reverse Alzheimer's and reverse memory loss associated with dementia. So if you'd like to learn more, go to brainpowerclinics.com. Go to brainpowerclinics.com and then enter your information. We will send you some free information, and then we hope to work with you if we can be helpful to you to help you prevent and reverse Alzheimer's disease.
I get a lot of pushback on gluten from people. What's your take on gluten? How does gluten impact inflammation? How does it impact the brain? What do people need to know about gluten if they're going to make a decision? Do I want gluten in my diet, or do I want to continue, or do I want to consider to be gluten-free?
Really good question. Let me start with a study. A patient goes to see their doctor because they've got some kind of brain concern, whatever it is. It's seizures, it's cognitive decline, it's depression, it's anxiety, it's schizophrenia. They've got some kind of brain dysfunction. Doesn't matter what it is. The doctor recommends something. They take the medication, it doesn't work. They go back 3 months later to the doctor, or earlier or later. Didn't work. He gives them something else. Still doesn't, just write a script to get him out. Still doesn't work. You go back again, a few months again, and maybe the doctor recommends you to a neurologist. And you have to wait a while to get in to see him. You go see the neurologist. He gives you a prescription for something more aggressive, stronger. And yeah, it seems to help a little bit, but it's not really working, and I don't feel good on this. And if you go back to the neurologist, if he's a smart guy, he sends you to a tertiary neurology center. Now, that's where the geek of geeks in the world of neurology, all they do is study the most difficult cases to try to figure out the mechanisms, what's going on for this person. I mean, they take as much time as they need to really dive in. That's a tertiary neurology center. Marios Hadjivassiliou runs the Tertiary Neurology Center in Sheffield, England. World famous, has, I don't know, maybe 150 papers now. I don't know the number, but a lot of papers. He's very prolific. He published a paper. When the cause of the neurological complaint can be identified, meaning the doctors at the Tertiary Neurology Center figured it out. Now, these are patients who have been to 2 docs already, and this is a tertiary center now. And if they can figure it out, the number of those people that have elevated antibodies to wheat is 5%. Okay. When the cause of a neurological complaint cannot be figured out, the number of patients with elevated antibodies to wheat is 57%. And when they put them on a gluten-free diet, they get better. It doesn't matter if it's ataxia, which means you can't walk very well anymore, or you can't button your shirt because you don't have control. Doesn't matter if it's MS. It doesn't matter if it's major depressive disorder.
So I'm sorry, you say MS and gluten?
Oh God, yeah. Just Google it. You'll see the studies pop up.
That's really interesting. So I want to make sure I understand the study that everyone gets this. So by the time someone reaches the tertiary neurological center and they don't know what's going on with this person, over half of them, 57% of them, have
elevated antibodies to wheat. Their immune system is fighting wheat, and they're eating wheat every day.
And so and
creating the inflammation.
And then when they get rid of the wheat, these patients get better.
They get better.
So over half of the patients who are stumping medical practitioners, general practitioners, and then neurologists, half of these people, it's from gluten. That's astounding.
That's exactly right. And
That's
I
astounding.
give you that one study. Yeah. And I give you that one study. I know. I know. It's like, what? What? Just read the science. So they may still have other triggers for their gasoline on the fire, but they all get better. Their symptoms may not all go away, this 57%, if they've got other things like dairy or mold or bacterial infections, or, there may be other things, but when they've got elevated antibodies to wheat and you get the wheat out of their diet, their inflammation goes down because they're throwing gasoline on the fire multiple times a day, every day. Toast for breakfast or a bagel for breakfast, sandwich for lunch, pasta for dinner, croutons on your salad, a cookie. I mean, we eat this stuff every day.
So all that, I used to love all that food too. Until I read your book and went gluten-free, I used to love all that food. It was all so good.
Yeah, I agree. So I wanted to give you that study first because the next piece of information on this, in Italy, there are 36 centers designated as gluten-related disorder centers by the government.
The home of pasta.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Exactly. But they're certified as gluten-related disorder centers. And when a doctor thinks his patient has a problem with gluten, he sends them to one of these centers. There's like 25 that are gastroenterology, a few pediatric, a few psychiatric, a couple of gerontology. They're all over the country. But the doctor sends the patient to the center because if they get a diagnosis of a wheat-related disorder from one of these centers, their food's a tax deduction. So the whole country knows about this. And they published a study, the 36 centers together published a study that said 15,000 patients, somewhere over 15,000. I don't remember the exact number, but it was over 15,000 patients who were sent to us. They were sent to us because they were suspected of having a wheat-related disorder. 7% of them were celiacs. 93% were non-celiac gluten sensitivity. And they put them on a wheat-free diet, they get better. So I tell you that one because don't think about celiac as the only manifestation. It's a very important one to consider, but by no means is a wheat-related disorder majority of time celiac. The percentages were 7% and 93%.
Now, my understanding from your book is that human beings do not have digestive enzymes. We do not make digestive enzymes to break down gluten. Gluten's a protein, and our stomach, our digestive enzymes break foods down so they can be absorbed. The challenge is we can't break gluten down anymore, and so this large molecule can then punch holes in our digestive lining. And this is my understanding is this is true for all humans, and that those little holes are the beginning of autoimmune disease because these large undigested macromolecules get into the bloodstream, and the immune system says this is a really big fat molecule, this is a really big carbohydrate, this is a really big protein, this should be broken down more, and the immune system gets activated. And so my understanding was that basically everybody is quote sensitive to gluten in that we don't have the ability to break it down, and therefore this can cause leaky gut and begin to initiate autoimmune disease.
Very good. Well done. Let me make it with some analogies a little clearer for the audience.
Please.
You've done the deep dive and you've spent a lot of time to understand some of these medical concepts. Mrs. Patient, your digestive tract is a tube. It goes from the mouth to the other end. It's one big, long tube. Kind of winds around in the center, 20, 25 feet long. If you think of a donut, if you could stretch a donut out so it's one big, long donut, and you look down the donut, that's your digestive tract. So when you eat food, it's not really in the body when you swallow it. It's in the donut. It's in the tube. But how do you get the vitamins and the minerals and the good things out of the food to go to your brain cells or to your muscle cells? How do you get it out of the tube into the bloodstream? Because the bloodstream's it's just a highway. Lots of traffic on the highway. It's all going the same direction. There's no lanes of traffic. It's like bumper cars in there. But how do you get the vitamins and minerals in the highway to go to the rest of your body? Think of protein like a pearl necklace. This is the analogy from Professor Alessio Castano at Harvard. You think of protein like a pearl necklace. Hydrochloric acid in your stomach undoes the clasp of the pearl, of the clasp of the necklace. Now you have a string of pearls. And it's your enzymes in your saliva and your stomach that are supposed to break down the pearl necklace into smaller pieces. Just clip, 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 until they're down to each pearl of the pearl necklace. And the pearls going down out of the stomach into the intestines now, that pearl necklace is now in very tiny pieces. Now the inside of the tube, the inside of the donut is lined with cheesecloth. The inside. So only small molecules can go through the cheesecloth to get into the bloodstream. And that's how we absorb our vitamins and minerals. They have to go through the cheesecloth. So some of the foods that we eat don't digest very quickly. That's why your intestines are 25 feet long. It takes a while sometimes to break that stuff down. So you take a bite of a hamburger, you take 3 bites or 3 chews, and you should do 20, but you do 3, gum, swallow. That clump of hamburger, it can't get through the cheesecloth into the bloodstream. It's got to go further down, being snipped smaller and smaller and smaller, until eventually it gets down to each pearl of the pearl necklace called an amino acid. And they go right through into the bloodstream. And now you're on the highway, and your brain can use it to make serotonin and melatonin and all the hormones that we need in our body. The problem is gluten in every human. This is what they're teaching at Harvard Medical School right now. When you swallow wheat, something made from wheat goes into your stomach. It doesn't get broken down enough, so it comes out of the stomach into the first part of the small intestine. Now you've got sentries standing guard right inside that first part of the small intestine, watching everything that's coming from the stomach, making sure there's no threats. I think of the soldiers at Buckingham Palace with those big black hats, right? They're standing there and they look dormant, but don't mess with those guys. Do not mess with those guys. Those sentries in the first part of your stomach are called toll-like receptors, TLR, toll-like receptors. And it's toll-like receptor 4 that's there looking for bugs. Remember our ancestors, they pick stuff up, they nibble it, then they chew it, they smell it, they nibble it, and if it seems okay, they eat it. If there's bugs on there, the toll-like receptor recognizes the bug coming in the food, and it activates immediately. Within 5 minutes, 2 things happen. And it's really cool to see the videos. Within 5 minutes, 2 things happen. The first thing is toll-like receptor 4 activates the production of this protein called zonulin. Now, we know zonulin is what causes the leaky gut when you have excess zonulin. Why would that happen? Because when you get the leaky gut, the space between the cells on the tube going through your abdomen, the space between the cells, zonulin opens a little space between those cells, tiny little space. So water from the body comes out from that open space into the gut. The water going into the gut is to wash out the bug. It washes it out with the poop. Think of mud in your driveway. You use a garden hose and you turn it out to wash the mud off the driveway. But if there's some that's really caked on, stuck on the driveway, you put your thumb over the opening to get a spray, and then you wash it off the driveway. That's zonulin. It's to wash out the bug that was in the food that toll-like receptor 4 saw. Whoa, that's a bug. Zonulin, let's get rid of this guy. And here comes the water to wash it out. It's a very cool system, that to protect our ancestors. We've got the same mechanism. It's genetic. That's part of our life-saving mechanism. That's the first thing it does. The second thing it does is it activates something called NF-kappa B. which is the major amplifier of inflammation in the body. So now you've got water coming into the gut to wash it out of there. And now you're making more cytokines, NF-kappa B and IL-1 beta and IL-6, all of these different cytokines to kill this thing, whatever this bug is. Now, Professor Alessio Fasano at Harvard, Professor of Medicine, Harvard Medical School, Professor of Nutrition, Harvard School of Public Health, the Chief of Pediatric Gastroenterology at Mass General at Harvard, the Director of the Celiac Research Center at Harvard, the Director of Mucosal Immunology at Harvard. That's the lining of the gut, the lining of the lungs, the lining of the brain. That's your mucosa. He's got 5 titles. Any one of those titles is a lifelong goal for someone at the top of their game. He's got 5. We think this guy's going to win the Nobel Prize because it was him and his team that identified this mechanism of zonulin back in 1997. Before that, gastroenterologists thought there's no such thing as leaky gut. It's a tight seal. Well, how does the food get in? Well, they couldn't explain it. But now we know zonulin is the mechanism.
And so can you explain what happened? I missed something about how gluten affects zonulin to create.
Good question.
Can you describe that, please?
That's, I should hire you to ask questions because that's the next point I'm about to make. Fasano, with 5 titles, is always so careful about what he says. Always so careful so that he's not misquoted. He wrote a paper in 2019. All disease begins in the, quote, leaky gut. The role of zonulin in the development of chronic inflammatory diseases. 14 of the 15 top causes of death are chronic inflammatory diseases. All disease begins in the leaky gut. Do you start to see the magnitude of what I'm talking about here, about inflammation? Now we're talking about where's the inflammation come from? All disease begins in the leaky gut because wheat, when it comes out of the stomach, and Fasano said this in the paper, and that paper is easy to get online. Just Google, all disease begins in the leaky gut, Fasano, Fasano, and the paper pops right up. He says in the paper, wheat is, I think he says gluten. Gluten is misinterpreted as a harmful component of a microorganism. So toll-like receptor 4, there to protect you, life-saving mechanism we inherited from our ancestors. Toll-like receptor 4 says that protein structure there, that piece of undigested gluten, that peptide of undigested gluten, the amino acid structure of that peptide looks like the shell of a microorganism. That's a bug. So it activates the whole inflammatory cascade. Are you following me?
And so gluten activates this inflammatory cascade.
Yes. Now, Maureen Leonard, very famous gastroenterologist, also at Harvard, she did a literature review of over 60 studies on this one topic of gluten activating the inflammatory cascade.
What's her name? I want to read this paper. I love
Maureen Leonard. Maureen Leonard in the Journal of the American Medical Association.
JAMA.
Yeah. And her conclusion, gluten activates transient intestinal permeability in all humans who consume it. You just need to read the science on this.
So in other words, gluten activates leaky gut
in all
humans. Whether or not you notice the symptoms, whether or not you enjoy gluten or not, most of us enjoy eating it. Gluten activates.
Well, let's talk about the problem, the symptoms, because people think I eat wheat and I feel fine. I don't have a problem with wheat. I feel fine.
You're so right. So many people say I'm not allergic to that, or like my sleep is fine. I'm like, well, how's your energy? How's your this? How's your this? They're like, well, not good. I'm like, well, are you getting 8 hours? No. Are you drinking enough water? No. Are you exercising? No. People have all these problems and they think they're actually fine. But then when you ask them, how is your health? They're like, actually, it's not that good now that you mention it.
Right. That's because we're all born and raised in a society that wants us to think about taking a pill when we feel bad.
I mean, Dr. Tom, you've seen this over the course of your career. It's fascinating to me. We're in a country, specifically in the United States, where 7 out of 10 Americans are overweight or obese.
Yeah.
That's our comparison group. I think Dr. Brant Courtright said 8 out of 10 Americans has some form of insulin resistance.
Yeah.
Not maybe 95% have some form of metabolic disturbance. This is insane. And this is who we're comparing ourselves to. And so people think, well, I'm not that sick, but almost everyone around us is sick in some way. It's really scary.
Right. The rule is test, don't guess. 14 of the 15 top causes of death are chronic inflammatory diseases. It's inflammation. Where's the inflammation coming from? All humans, when they eat wheat, but I feel fine when I eat wheat. Here's the next study for you then. It is a component of wheat called FODMAPs, fermentable carbohydrates, that cause the bloating and the gas that people feel when they eat wheat. Not the gluten, not the proteins. The proteins trigger the immune response, which means the chronic inflammation that manifests wherever your cog, wherever that wheel turns, whether it's your brain or diabetes or autoimmune diseases, wherever that weak link is in your chain, that's what the proteins of wheat trigger, is the inflammation response that manifests somewhere on that wheel. The FODMAPs in wheat cause the bloating and the gas and the pain that you get, or diarrhea or constipation. It's the FODMAPs, not the proteins in wheat. That's why people think they can go to Italy and eat the wheat, because I feel fine when I eat the wheat in Italy. Well, that's because it's lower in FODMAPs. But you still activate the immune system.
People talk about the gluten in the United States being genetically modified, or the bread being genetically modified, or there's the Frankenstein wheat we have here. We also have a lot more glyphosate on our wheat, which is not healthy. So I've heard the argument that the wheat...
Yeah, those things are true. Those things are true, but their impact is that they destroy the microbiome.
Okay.
And now you get the whole cascade from the microbiome of problems that can develop.
So the wheat in the United States, also because of the glyphosate on it, destroys the microbiome, and it's got the gluten. You're saying, and then the wheat in Europe has less of the glyphosate, and therefore doesn't destroy our microbiome, but it still's got the gluten, which can create basically leaky gut. And you mentioned it has less FODMAPs, so people have less of a negative reaction to it.
Less bloating, less gas. They feel fine when they eat the wheat in Europe. But when they come back and they get their test done, their rheumatoid antibodies are back up again, or their MS antibodies are back up again, or their depression is worse two weeks after getting home again. Because the inflammation is activated by the wheat in Europe, just like here in the U.S.
And that original study you quoted was from Europe, or it's from Britain, correct? Was basically half the people who go to this tertiary neurology center for unknown diseases, half of them had gluten issues. So it's not just in the United States that there are gluten issues. This is Europe as well.
Yes. Very common. Unfortunately, it's very common. So when you understand, wheat activates toll-like receptor 4 when it comes out of the stomach into the first part of the intestines. Now you get the transient leaky gut. That wouldn't be a problem if like my son is 2.5 years old, and we've given him wheat now 3 times in 2.5 years, because I want to prime his immune system that this is a problem. And so his immune system builds up a little bit of resilience, but we're not overpowering his immune system by giving it to him every day, right? So the problem with us is that toast for breakfast, sandwich for lunch, pasta for dinner, croutons on the salad, noodles in the soup, day after week after month after year, boom, 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 boom. And every human gets transient intestinal permeability every time they're exposed to wheat. It's transient, doesn't stay, but because it's so constant And it also creates the inflammation, which destroys your microbiome. After a while, you can't handle it anymore. Now you've got leaky gut, pathogenic leaky.
Yeah. So what's the impact of leaky gut, so people can understand? I don't think it's a very scary. I don't think it's a very scary term, but it's actually it's extremely damaging to the body. And so if I show a friend or family member or colleague that, this information to try to get them off of gluten, they say, oh, that's just leaky gut. Oh, that's not a big deal. Or so what if there's slight permeability in my gut? Why is that such a big deal? Can you help you understand why this is such a big deal for overall health as well as for brain health?
When you read the Fasano's paper, all disease begins in the leaky gut. Well, what about all disease begins in the leaky gut? Well, what about rheumatoid? All disease. I mean, can you get it through your head? All disease begins in the leaky gut. And people don't like to hear that. And medics don't like to hear, oh, that's utter nonsense. There's no one trigger for everything. All disease begins in the leaky gut. Fasano talks about the perfect storm in the development of chronic inflammatory diseases, right? And there's 5 components to the perfect storm in the development of chronic inflammatory diseases. First, genetics. Where's the weak link in your chain? You pull at a chain, it always breaks at the weakest link. It's at one end, the middle, the other end, your heart, your brain, your liver. Wherever your weak link is, that's where the chain's going to break. So first of the 5 pillars is genetics. Can't do anything about the deck of cards you were dealt in life. That's it. But you can do a lot about, and for people don't know what genetics means. Well, I got some genes. What does that mean? It's your genes that determine how you respond to everything. How much stress can your body handle is determined by your genetic structure. So that when your genes get activated, your body produces proteins to deal with whatever the interaction is. So you want proteins that are more anti-inflammatory as opposed to inflammatory, right? So your genes control our response at the cellular level. Now, doctors always say, well, we're going to turn these genes off. Well, you can't turn genes off. You can dim them down. Genes operate on dimmer switches, and you can dim them down. If you've got the gene for Alzheimer's, it doesn't mean you're getting Alzheimer's. It means it's the weak link in your chain if you pull too hard on the chain. So stop pulling so hard on the chain. Well, where's the pull coming from? Inflammation is the pull on the chain. Or if you've got the breast cancer gene, BRCA1 or BRCA2, it doesn't mean you're getting breast cancer. But if you keep pulling on the chain, that's likely where it's going to break. Well, what's the pull? Inflammation. Where's the all disease begins in leaky gut. So you want to turn down the genes of inflammation and turn up the genes of anti-inflammation. We've known for 20 years, if you eat 1 cup of blueberries a day for 3 years, your brain's working as well as it was 13 years earlier.
Oh, that's fantastic. I just ate a bunch of blueberries.
Oh, marvelous. Marvelous. But, we've known this since the 90s. We've known that because it turns on the genes of anti-inflammation to put the fire out in your brain. That's one of the wonderful things that blueberries do.
So the perfect storm, number 1 is genetics.
Number 1 is genetics. Number 2, the environmental triggers that activate the genes or turn them down. The environmental triggers. And the most common environmental trigger is what's on the end of your fork. That's most common. There are many that you have to explore. My books go through all of this, but what's on the end of your fork is most important. That's why wheat is so important to consider. Number 3, a lifetime of too many environmental triggers activating genes of inflammation, you change the microbiome. You get dysbiosis. Too many bad guys, not enough good guys. And you create this inflammatory environment in your gut because you have too many bad guys and not enough good guys.
Now the gut bacteria is so important, and this has become more accepted more and more recently. When did this become kind of a cut? When did this begin to be incorporated into medicine? The importance of gut bacteria. Was this 10 years ago? Was this 15 years ago? When did this become a thing in medicine?
That's a really good question. Hippocrates is quoted as saying all disease begins in the gut. 2,500 years ago, he didn't know about the bacteria there, but he knew it was the gut. And so as our technologies improve, we're now identifying more and more mechanisms, which bacteria seem to impact on depression, which bacteria on anxiety, which bacteria on schizophrenia. Those kind of papers are coming out now. We're still learning, so the most
the idea of schizophrenia is associated with gut bacteria is fascinating. That's so different from what I learned in school. I mean, that's a fascinating idea.
Yeah. Just Google gluten and schizophrenia. And the articles come up in the American Journal of Psychiatry, where they're reversing schizophrenia in about, I think it was 34% of people have a sensitivity to wheat. And when they put them on a gluten-free diet, they get better. And within a year, they're off their medications, and they don't publish until they've been off their medications for a year. And they say, yeah, the guy's fine. As long as he stays away from, if he gets some wheat, he has a relapse. Just read the science.
Wow.
When you read this stuff, you go, yeah, wow, again and again and again. So that's number 3 is dysbiosis. So when you've got this too many bad guys, not enough good guys in the gut, dysbiosis, that's an inflammatory environment. That's what tears the cheesecloth. And you get number 4, the leaky gut. When you have the leaky gut, these larger molecules are getting through the cheesecloth, called macromolecules. Before they've been snipped small enough, they're getting through because there's tears in the cheesecloth. And now they're in the bloodstream, off on the highway. And your brain says, whoa, what's that? That's not good for me. Immune system, we need to fight that. And you've got Army, Air Force, Marine Corps generals sitting around with nothing to do. General, fight this. Now you make antibodies to peppers or to chicken or to beef. Doesn't matter what the food is. And those are the people that do 90 food blood tests, good comprehensive blood tests, comes back they're sensitive to 23 different foods. Oh my God, that's everything I eat. Well, of course it is. You've got a leaky gut and your immune system's trying to protect you from these macromolecules that are getting through into the bloodstream. And you go, so heal the gut, rebuild the microbiome, 6 months, stay away from the foods. 6 months later, you check again. Now you're sensitive to 2 foods, maybe 3. Those are permanent.
That's really interesting. So
that's
our
number
gut
4.
Bacteria and our health actually affects our food sensitivity. That's so interesting.
That's exactly right.
That's
number 4. And number 5, the chronic inflammatory disease. Because you're making these antibodies to all these different foods and other molecules that get into the bloodstream, and now they start attacking your tissue. Here comes the chronic inflammatory disease. All disease begins in the leaky gut. This is PhD level stuff. I mean, it's really, but this is what they're teaching at Harvard Medical School right now.
We have a smart group here. People who are watching this talk, they are committed to their health. I hope you're taking notes. I'm taking notes. If people are watching this and subscribe to this, they're really intelligent and they really want to get the most. They want to live a healthier life. And I love you getting really deep into the weeds here, because some of this information, not only is it interesting how the body works, but people can share it with their doctors, or they can use it to shop around and find a doctor, find a functional medicine doctor, a naturopathic medicine doctor, someone who's competent in this. Please find doctors who are competent in the gut bacteria, and understand gluten and understand how to prevent Alzheimer's disease. I want you working with the best professionals. Can you talk a little bit about what does inflammation specifically do for the brain, and how does that affect our risk of Alzheimer's disease?
Yeah. When you get leaky gut, if it continues, you also get leaky brain. You've got a cheesecloth around your brain that's much tighter, much smaller than the cheesecloth in your gut. Because not everything in the bloodstream even the healthy things are supposed to be there, are supposed to get into the brain. Only really tiny, tiny, tiny little things are supposed to get through the blood-brain barrier into the brain. But when you get a leaky brain, and gluten does this, when you get a leaky brain, now these larger molecules get into the brain, inside the blood-brain barrier, they get directly into the brain. We have 4 different immune systems in our body. We have one in our gut. That's the main one, about 70 to 80% of the immune system's in the gut, because that's where we get more exposures to the potential threats. We have an immune system in our liver that's very different, the immune system in your bloodstream, and the immune system in your brain. Now, the immune system in the gut is kind of like the sheriff in town. The sheriff walks around with his 2 6 guns in the old cowboy towns. He's got these 6 guns to keep the peace, right? The immune system in your bloodstream is like the marshal. The marshal covers an area. Might be a couple, 3, 4 towns in his district that he covers. In your bloodstream, we call them special forces, and that's your antibodies. They're special forces. They're specifically going after some threat, whatever that threat should be. But the immune system in the brain, called the glial cells, these guys have bazookas. Nothing survives when the glial cells get activated. So when you get a breach of the blood-brain barrier, in my book I call it B4, capital B number 4, breach of the blood-brain barrier. When you get B4 and a molecule that's healthy and safe in the bloodstream, but too big to get into the brain, gets into the brain, activates the glial cells immediately, firing their bazooka, completely destroying whatever that molecule is. That's great. But
I would slow down for just a moment. I love this analogy. So we got 4 different immune systems: the gut, the liver, the blood, the brain. The brain actually does have an immune system with the glial cells. Glial for glue. They thought they were actually holding the neurons in place, but we find they're support cells.
Yeah, no, they're an immune system.
They're part of the cleansing of the brain as well. So four different immune systems. About half the immune systems in the gut, correct?
No, over 70%.
Oh, really? Okay, so that number's been changed. Excellent. And so the gut is the sheriff, the liver is the marshal, covering a specific area, the blood is the special forces, and the brain is a bazooka, has a bunch of bazookas. Okay, great. Right. I love that. That's a great way of understanding the immune system. Okay, so please continue.
So if your environmental trigger, I'm going to use an analogy here. If your environmental trigger is mold, and you had to flood your basement, you cleaned it up, but you never did the remediation, and you're breathing mold every day, and you're sick, and you don't know why you're sick. But if it's mold, and you're breathing it in, it's going right up to your brain, causing a breach of the blood-brain barrier. Now these molecules are constantly getting in, activating the glial cells constantly. Now you get collateral damage from these bazookas being fired off again and again and again and again. And you get this collateral damage in there. Now you've got damaged brain tissue. And when you get damaged brain tissue, now your immune system, trying to protect you, is going to get rid of the old and damaged cells and make new cells. Those are antibodies to your brain tissue. That's the blood test, NeuroZoomer Plus. 53 different markers of inflammation in your brain to identify what your current status is. And so that's how you check. But that's where this is all coming from. It's inflammation in the brain. That's the primary mechanism for all of this. Now, with Parkinson's, we've identified, and I don't believe they've identified it with Alzheimer's, but with Parkinson's, there's another mechanism, and that is that these proteins, they get misfolded. They get twisted in such a way that they're weird and your body can't use them anymore. With Alzheimer's, it's beta amyloid. With Parkinson's, it's alpha-synuclein. There are other proteins, they get twisted in the gut. What we now know, that's happening in the gut 20, 25 years before you ever have a symptom of Parkinson's. And these proteins, these alpha-synuclein proteins, are creeping neuron by neuron. So they go up the vagus nerve, neuron by neuron, like the itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout, neuron by neuron up to the brain. And they've got a magnetic pull to the area called substantia nigra. And that's where they deposit. And then the glial cells activate to kill these misfolded proteins that aren't supposed to be there. And the collateral damage, here comes Parkinson's. And you read the science on this, oh my God, this just makes sense. It's
I'm sorry.
All disease begins in the gut.
Sorry. So if I'm following you, the Parkinson's disease, one potential cause or contributing factor of Alzheimer's disease is eating gluten.
Yeah.
And I missed the exact mechanism by which gluten hurts the substantia nigra. Is it inflammation?
I haven't seen any evidence of this. I'm using the example of Parkinson's with alpha-synuclein because I suspect, and some of your experts will know more about this than I do.
I got a little bit lost. I just want to make sure. But in your experience, consuming gluten can increase the risk of Parkinson's disease.
Oh gosh, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
yes.
It's really, really important field now because a number of people are not only concerned about Alzheimer's but also leaky gut. And what's the Parkinson's disease? What are the numbers on autoimmune disease for women? Is it a third of women over age 65 have autoimmune disease in the United States?
When you do the right kind of testing for this, see, if we start talking about autoimmune disease, the diagnosis of autoimmune disease, you're way down the road. This has been going on for a long time. By the time you get a diagnosis.
Just like Alzheimer's, right? Started 30 years ago.
That's right. That's right. But when you check for the autoimmune mechanism and how many people are on the spectrum of autoimmunity,
yes,
that's when you see the numbers that are just jaw-dropping.
Can you give us an idea of what those numbers are, just to instill a
7 to 8 out of 10 in my practice? 7 to 8 out of 10 people who, when we run a comprehensive blood test looking for antibodies to their own tissue, 7 to 8 out of 10 come back positive.
So 7 out of 10 people have antibodies indicating what could be the beginning of autoimmune disease.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. Let that be a warning to all of us to clean up our diet, to stop things that are creating inflammation, to really take care of our gut bacteria. Oh my gosh.
Well, I would suggest let that be a message that everyone get properly tested. The rule is test, don't guess. See if you're on the spectrum. And if you are, and your doctor doesn't know what to do about it, read my book, The Autoimmune Fix. It's all in there. Or read my book, You Can Fix Your Brain. It's all in there.
I love that I knew about you before I met you, that I read your book 5 or 6 years ago. It's a really terrific book that explains the science of autoimmune disease and gut bacteria and gluten so well. I love the picture that you have of the intestine, and you talk about the shag carpet.
Yes.
And how celiac, I think it's celiac disease. Basically, the gluten. This isn't exactly what happens, but basically the gluten like wears out the shag carpet, so the intestine's smooth, and so they can't absorb anything.
Right.
It reduces. I think the surface area of the intestine, the small intestine, is about like the size of a tennis court, with all of the microvilli.
Couples tennis court.
And then after celiac disease and exposure to gluten, the surface area of their intestine is so much smaller, so much harder for them to absorb nutrition in their stomach.
That's right.
Oh my gosh. It's just a terrific book. Really, really great information. So,
thank you.
Lastly, before we go, I'd love to know, what are some practical steps people can take to protect their brain and their body from these things, from autoimmune disease and so forth. You mentioned test. Starting number one is test, right? And number one, all disease begins in the gut. I guess that's probably 0, right? 0, all disease begins in the gut. Number one is test. Test, don't guess.
Yes. Critically important to find out where you are right now, because this world we're living in is such an inflammatory world. A friend of mine just reached out by text a couple of days ago. He's a really wonderful family physician in Houston. Said, "Hey, Tom, how are you?" So we're talking by text. And I said, "Hey, what percentage of people that you check come back and their immune system is not fighting environmental chemicals, pesticides, insecticides, organophosphates?" because he's really good at this testing. And he came back and he said, almost everyone is positive. I don't remember the last time I had a negative. And all that stuff. See, toxins in our body, there's two categories of toxins, endotoxins and exotoxins. Endotoxins means the toxins that are accumulating in your body, your system is inefficient in getting rid of them, so they're accumulating. And everybody's heard of lead poisoning or mercury toxicity, but it's also the pesticides in your food. It's the insecticides, the chemicals that are the antibiotics that are in your food. I'm going to give you a study here that doesn't relate to the brain, but it gives you an appreciation of why it's so important to eat organic. This is such a critically important concept. So in the Journal of the American Medical Association, they wrote a paper. This came from Harvard, and they looked at couples going to assisted fertility centers. Really important concept. You know, these couples, as you may know, they're spending tens of thousands of dollars trying to get pregnant and have a healthy pregnancy, to have a baby, right? And they ruled out every single possible trigger: obesity, alcohol consumption, cigarette smoking, exercise, no exercise, stress, socioeconomic class, race, are you poverty or not? I mean, all of these factors, they ruled them out in such a way that the editors of the journal said, this is an elegant study using sophisticated markers to demonstrate their point. The editors of the Journal of the American Medical Association don't say that. They don't say that very often, right? So that gave credibility to the study. So I said, okay, I can't argue with this one. Whatever they're saying, I can't argue with it. So they looked at how many servings of fruits and vegetables the woman was eating during pregnancy.
Ooh, interesting.
They divided the answers into fourths, those in the lowest amount per day, the next, the third, and the highest amount per day. And then they looked to see how many are eating organic and how many are not. And what they found out when they compared those eating the highest serving of fruits and vegetables a day compared to those eating the lowest serving of fruits and vegetables a day, those in the highest category had an 18% less likelihood of getting pregnant.
I'm sorry. Those who
Oh, you heard it correctly.
Those who ate the most fruits and vegetables
had an 18% less likelihood of being successful for implantation. And if they did get pregnant, they had a 26% less likelihood of a live birth. They lost the baby.
Eating more fruits and vegetables.
Eating more fruits and vegetables.
How can this be?
Because they were conventional.
Oh, no.
When they looked at those that were eating organic, it was the exact opposite. The more servings of fruits and vegetables organic, the higher the rate of success and the higher the rate of a healthy pregnancy. And this is the kicker that's empowering for everyone. The number of servings of organic fruits and vegetables that were required to be in the category of organic was three times a week.
What?
Not 21 times a week.
So not 3 servings a day. Three servings of fruits and vegetables that are organic a week puts someone in the top healthiest category?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Because people who are doing that, they're doing other things probably to be healthier too, in general. They probably are if they're doing organic.
I'm probably on 3 servings today. I got organic frozen broccoli from Costco in my smoothie. I got organic blueberries. I got this great dessert. I'm doing black rice, organic cauliflower, and organic sweet potatoes. I'm blending them with some MCT oil from coconuts, and then maple syrup for sweetness and a little bit of salt. So I got this and then I'm adding chocolate to it. So I got this chocolate pudding with this basis of healthy organic vegetables. I'm so excited about it.
Do you know that you sound like a nutcase right now?
I sure do. That's my dessert. My dessert is cauliflower. I absolutely. Thank you. That's such an honor, Dr. Tom.
But you don't, for everyone out there, You don't have to be a nutcase. You just have to head in the direction
So just
of
3 servings a
organic
week.
when you can.
3 servings of organic fruits and vegetables a week.
And the editors of JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, said this is an elegant study using sophisticated biomarkers to demonstrate their point.
What can you? What's the author of the study, please? I got JAMA.
I'll send it to you.
Okay, thank you. I would love that. I want to read this.
I'm sure you would.
I want to tell people 3 servings a week. You got to be able to do 3 servings a week.
It's jaw dropping.
I mean, what a great threshold. So we got number 1, all disease begins in the gut. Number 2, test, don't guess. Where are you at right now? Number 3, 3 servings a week of organic fruits and vegetables.
Yeah. Now, I told you that study because it doesn't relate to the brain directly. What it relates to is the most sensitive tissue in the body, and that is the reproductive gamete, when the egg gets fertilized, the sperm in the egg, most sensitive tissue. And there's lots of studies that talk about the chemical environment of that we're all exposed to and how that affects all of that. Lots of individual studies, but this one put it all together in a way to say more fruits and vegetables you eat that are not organic, the more likely you're going to have a miscarriage or a stillbirth. I mean, it's jaw-dropping when you hear this. We have to understand this world we're living in today is so toxic and so poisoned, and you think you're fine in the midst of it, but internally, that's the world of endotoxins, what's accumulating inside your body. So when you start to learn about detox, which is a whole, it's a 6-month learning adventure on its own. And when you start learning, so detox, you have to avoid more toxic exposures coming in, but you have to get the stuff out that's been accumulating in your body. All of that is critically important. So with the topic of Alzheimer's, this is so overwhelming for people. The message that I would leave you with, this was a subtitle of my book. I told you before we started, I had argued with Rodeo Press for 2 weeks about the title of my book, and I wanted, You Can Fix Your Brain, because that is the message.
What did they want?
I agreed to their subtitle. The subtitle is just 1 hour a week to the best memory, productivity, and sleep you've ever had.
That's a great subtitle too.
And
subtitle.
That is the secret to success in this, because this is way too overwhelming. There's so much to learn. But every Tuesday night after dinner, every Sunday morning, whenever it is, you pick it. But you tell your family, you know what? Tuesday after dinner, leave me alone. I'm spending 1 hour to learn a little more how we can be healthier. Because when you learn about the phthalates in plastic containers that you put your leftover food in the refrigerator, the next day you take the chicken out or you take the spaghetti out, and it's got phthalates in it from the container that accumulate in your body. When you learn that, and you learn that when you go to the coffee shop and you get a coffee, the phthalates are on the inside of the plastic cup and on the lid, and you put that hot liquid up to your mouth, and the hot liquid hits the lid, tapers down into the opening, and you're drinking coffee full of phthalates. And when you learn what the phthalates do to your brain, then you learn, okay, so first one for the plastic storage containers, 1 hour a week. So you go to my book, and there's the 3 URLs, because I have 36 to-dos in there. There's the 3 URLs for glass storage containers. There's Miles Kimball and Amazon and whatever the third one was, I don't remember, right? And you go online and you look at those are okay, and you look at the other, I like those. And you order 3 round ones and 2 square ones and 1 for the pie, and you pay with your credit card and you hit send. It took you 1 hour, but you're done for the week. You're done.
And potentially done for years, right? Get good ones, you're done for years.
Exactly. Never will you poison your family again with plastic storage containers, ever. And next week you deal with nail polish. And the week after that, you deal with thermoses, stainless steel thermos for your coffee. So when you go to the coffee shop, you just say, fill it up, please. And you hand them the container.
Will Starbucks do that? Will they do that?
No, they won't. But they and they want to put the plastic lid on it now because when I'm traveling, I say no lid, please, because I get green tea at Starbucks. I won't drink their coffee, but I get green tea at Starbucks, and so so we have to put the lid on. So I say, all right, just put the cup on the counter and put the lid on, and they do, and then I take it and I take the lid off right away, and then I take the cup of green tea and I pour it in my container right there. And I throw the cup away, which is unfortunate. It's a waste. I don't want to do that. But, I need the tea. I'm traveling. And so, but I carry my stainless steel mug with me.
Excellent.
And you learn about doing those little, every week, one thing, 1 hour a week. And in 6 months, you go somewhere and you see a friend you haven't seen in a while. I say, wow, you look great. You look great. What happened to you? Your skin looks so great, or your hair. Oh, I've really changed my life. I got glass storage containers. I got organic nail polish without phthalates. I'm using a mug here, and I got rid of the plastic blinds in the house, and, I've got air filtration systems in the house now. And, I've got my smoothies with blueberries and organic this and all that, and your friend looks at you and they go, wow, wow, they're just overwhelmed.
I love that. Just
But
1 hour a week.
1 hour a week. 1 hour a week. And you can do it. You will change your life if you allocate 1 hour a week and you've got the right guidance.
I love this. Dr. Tom O'Brien, thank you so much for being here. I've enjoyed your book, The Autoimmune Fix, and it's such an honor to have you. And thank you for this really in-depth understanding of the impact of inflammation on the body, the source of inflammation. All disease begins in the gut. The impact of gluten on the body and the brain, and then the message of hope. 1 hour a week. Everyone's got 1 hour a week. If you don't, you really need to sit down and reevaluate your life, because everyone's got an hour a week to work on themselves. And it can start by buying some glass containers for your food, and it can start by not drinking out of plastic cups from Starbucks. So thank you so much. This has been so wonderful.
Thank you, Robert.